Denver Broncos make a major offseason adjustment, and I think this course change is going to put the Denver Broncos defense in a place to be the best defense in the entire NFL next year, and I got the receipts to prove it. We're going to break down who Sean Payton is going to be targeting in the first round based on his press conference, and we have Rob Gronkowski news. We got to break it all down and way more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan. It helps me and the YouTube algorithm out a ton if you like the Broncos, if you would like and subscribe. Sean Payton did his press conference at the NFL Combine, and the vibes were night and day different from this time last year. You could just feel the hope and the optimism, and maybe it's us getting through the winter, but I'm like fired up about this team right now, and I feel like football is just around the corner, and the NFL Combine, it's kind of like football is back. So Sean Payton announces a major change here, and I think it is setting us up to be the best defense in all of football next year. So we know going into this offseason, we had the team that had the most sacks in the entire NFL last year, and then we had the defensive player in the year, a lockdown quarter in Pat Surtain. So saying like if we just make a couple adjustments, we could be the best defense in the league isn't a crazy claim whatsoever. We have two holes on this defense. It's the inside linebacker position, and it's the safety position. Yesterday, we broke down how there are three really good free agent safeties, two of whom are basically like already rumored to come to Denver, and we have the cap space for it. And what if our inside linebacker is already on this team? Well, Sean Payton announced today that we are going to be moving Drew Sanders, the stud from Arkansas, like an SEC stud, just an athletic freak who had an Achilles injury this time last year, moving him back to inside linebacker. Now you're having a ton of like really plugged in people just talk about like what a great move this is. James Palmer talks about how closely of a comparison he is to Zach Bond when it comes to just like his athleticism, his size, his strength, his speed, all match up very closely to that. We know Sean Payton was the one who found that diamond in the rough in Zach Bond and drafted him to New Orleans. Now Zach Bond was almost defensive player of the year at that inside linebacker position. So if Sean Payton thinks that Drew Sanders could be inside linebacker and he thought Zach Bond is, like, we know he can evaluate that position and knows what it takes. So if you are telling me that we take Justin Strnad and Cody Barton and Quan Alexander at some points last year, and we are swapping them for a healthy Alex Singleton and Drew Sanders, sign me up. Like, you've automatically just taken that from a below average position to like a slightly above average position. I think that is extremely exciting. Now there are folks, I laughed out loud at this tweet here from Sarah Bettinger, kind of going back to The Office when Michael Scott has to have his vasectomy and then has to have it undone and then redone. He feels like snip, you know, that would be painful. That's kind of what we've done a little bit with Drew Sanders. And so you hope you haven't ruined the player by having him move to edge rusher and then back to inside linebacker and edge rusher and back. But I think if we have him here and we have him here to stay, it's going to be fantastic. I trust that having an entire offseason with Vance Joseph, like telling him what to do and knowing that the rest of that defense is pretty solid, and that he's going to be lining up next to Singleton, who knows this offense inside and out and has been along with this team. He didn't go and rehab at his own house in California or something. He stuck with this team all season long and was cheering us on, going to playoff games and doing things that most injured players didn't do. I know that that would be a crazy duo, and I'm very excited about the potentials of that. Now, in addition to that, George Payton also talked about how they're not going to settle at that and start naming starters. They're not saying Drew Sanders is a locked-in starter, that they want to keep adding positions there for competition. And so there could be a world where you go out and you get a veteran inside linebacker like a Shaq Thompson to come in and be there and add some competition to that room and maybe have a buffer for if Singleton's not ready to go from the jump. But I'm all of a sudden really excited about this defense, which was already crazy above average last year, taking a massive leap forward. And really, I think that move for Drew Sanders is good because we saw last year, even after trading Baron Browning, we didn't have enough ability to even put edge rushers out there because we're dividing snaps among Cooper and Benito, and Jonah Ellis is going to take a step forward into next year. Tillman came on last year, and so there really weren't enough edge rushing snaps even to be had to have that rotation. So I love this move. I think if he's a fraction of the inside linebacker that Zach Bond is, that could be crazy exciting. So that's just really the start of what we heard in the press conference today. We heard quite a bit about what Sean Payton wants here. And we heard several times them talk about how they are going to try to fall in love with 4 players to find at 20. And that way, if like one of them goes off your board, you've got 4 players who you are in love with. And everyone has been talking about how one of those is going to be Jeanty, the once-in-a-generation running back from Boise State. But Sean Payton and George Payton both said some things today that made me think that we might not be targeting a running back at that position. They talked about how deep this class was, and they even talked about how they might already have their starting running back on this squad. They talked up Audric a lot. They talked up Jaleel. They talked up Tyler Beatty. So maybe we already have that running back on this position. But over the combine week here, you will see Denver Broncos meeting with Jeanty. They're one of like 8 teams that you see listed on the screen here who are going to be having meetings with him. I think what you're going to end up seeing is that the Broncos with that first pick in the draft are going to find a tight end. And it is going to be a tight end whose first skill is the skill of catching the ball and run after the catch. That a lot of times are you looking for a great blocker who you can turn into a receiver, or are you looking for a great receiver who you can turn into a great blocker? Well, you heard Sean Payton and George Payton both ask that, and they said the first skill you look for is the ability to catch the ball and be a playmaker, and then we can teach them how to run block. And so with that being said, I actually think that what if Tyler Warren or what if Colston Loveland is actually their number 1 tight end on the board? Everyone is saying that it's Tyler Warren, who might go a lot earlier. Colston is like the 2nd rated and is going to fall. So what if the Broncos don't even have to trade up, and it's going to be a situation like we had with Bo Nix, where we're just like, hey, we got the guy we wanted the whole time, and we didn't have to draft up for him, because Sean prioritizes your ability to be a wide receiver first, and then he'll teach you how to run block. So just seeing here, that is exactly what you hear about his skill set, is like he is a wide receiver who you're going to have to teach to run block, but his athleticism is off the charts. And so I think, to me, bringing our 3rd Loveland to the state of Colorado would be awesome. We got my favorite ski place, Loveland. We have Loveland like right by Fort Collins, and now we're going to have Colston Loveland in Denver. That's going to be insane. But if we take a look at this draft, man, we've got several first time in NFL history that this has happened, where you have tight ends who've accounted for over 1/3 of their college's passing offense. So Tyler Warren, 33% exactly. Loveland had 34, almost 35%. And then you had Harold Fannin, who they're saying is going to be a 3rd-round draft pick. So maybe that's the guy, right? That maybe do we get a center with the first pick, and we find Harold Fannin in this late 2nd or 3rd round, who accounted for over half of his team's yardage. That's absolutely crazy. And you take a look here, Brock Bowers, who everyone said was a once-in-a-generation tight end, he only had about 1/4 of the Georgia offense. And the big caveat there is that we know that Georgia offense also had Ladd McConkey and some studs there. But I think that's very exciting. Now, we're going to get a tight end in this draft for sure. And who's going to develop him? Because that's going to been one of the worst position rooms in the entire NFL. Well, what if I told you Rob Gronkowski, Cecil Lammey, great plugged-in reporters covering the combine right now from Indianapolis, and he came out and said that Rob Gronkowski is training in altitude right now in Vail, Colorado, and he plans to try to return to the NFL. We know that he's really linked in with Sean Payton. They both worked for Fox Sports. They have a good relationship. They text each other, and Rob Gronkowski has been very high on Bo Nix. Now, what's funny, as soon as this thing dropped, in one of my text threads, I'm in there with a Raiders guy, content creator, and a Chiefs content creator, and the Chiefs content creator is like, the Broncos are so unserious if they think they're going to have Rob Gronkowski. He's older than dirt. Rob Gronkowski is 5 months older than Travis Kelce, and we'd be able to pay him at a vet minimum. His body is much younger from a football standpoint than Travis Kelce, who hasn't taken these years off from football. So I think if you're talking about a mentor, a guy who lays it all out on the line for his team and is an incredible run blocker, if we could have Rob Gronkowski at a vet minimum to then go ahead and train up and mentor Colston Loveland, sign me up. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. That'd be crazy. Last couple things, and maybe we leave those for tomorrow. I do want to leave us here on just a really why this is so different here from this time last year. And Sean Payton was basically saying like, hey, the reason this is different than it was last year is we got our franchise quarterback, and now it's about taking advantage of that. And so if we put Sanders in at middle linebacker, we get a safety inside of free agency. You were talking about this draft. The number one goal is find weapons for Bo Nix and take this thing to the ceiling next year. This is going to be like like Ethereum and Bitcoin. Like, we're going to the moon, baby. And I hope you're there for it. And the last thing that we just got to end on, because it gave me chills, was hearing Sean Payton talk about what's happening next year and really where this team is going.
You know, the journey begins, and we don't shy away from it. Our expectations are high, and I'm encouraged with some of the things that we did this past season, and yet still kind of hungry for more.
Our expectations are high. I'm encouraged by what we did last season, but we are hungry for more. This young and hungry team is taking us on a deep playoff run next year. This draft is going to be wild. Make sure you're buckled in Broncos country. We got a ton to believe in. Oh, no backboard, boy.